Luigi Mangione suppression hearings continued. You are probably wondering what this headline means. Wet underwear and Italian bread. Well, I will tell you everything that happened in court today as I was there all day, and oh my goodness, was it a long day. I'm Lauren Conlin. Welcome to LA Magazine's Pop Culture, Scandals, and Crime News podcast. So technically, we are on day 5 of Luigi Mangione's suppression hearings, although I guess it's the 4th day since on Friday he was sick and we got sent home. We didn't have court. And if you're just tuning in, these suppression hearings pre-trial, and this is Luigi's state trial, not the federal trial, his team, his defense team, is trying to exclude pieces of evidence found, number one, in the backpack that he was wearing. They are trying to say this search was unlawful, and also different statements he made. They're trying to get those to become inadmissible for different reasons. So it's definitely been very tedious. I would say very repetitive in a way, but I do understand this is very, very important to both sides to try to get one side, the evidence in, the other side, the evidence suppressed. And the defense is trying to say, well, look, this search happened because of the New York investigation. So New York search laws should be applied. And the state is like, nope, this was in Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania search laws are applied. And in Pennsylvania, the search and seizure laws are a bit looser. You don't need to necessarily get a search warrant to search someone who's been detained or arrested, whereas that's generally the case in New York. And I mean, it's obviously a little bit more complicated than that, but I'm not going to get into it now. But okay, so the first witness, I really want to get to the wet underwear and the Italian bread because I was looking at some of the tweets that I was live tweeting. And when I wrote those, these phrases seem to get the most views. I think people were probably very intrigued, especially if, you're not paying attention to the case and then you just see this, you're like, what is going on? So just to get some of the standard stuff out of the way, the first witness on the stand, very, very brief. It was an ADA, Nicole Smith from Blair County, Pennsylvania, who described being inside a Blair County courtroom when she got the call from, I believe it was Lieutenant Holman, about the possible New York shooting suspect being at the McDonald's. So she talked about how both she and the DA Peter Weeks, advised Hanley about these charges. He told them what happened with the false ID, etc. And she was like, yeah, false ID, forgery, and then later the unlawful possession of a weapon, hiding the evidence, etc. And so it was pretty standard, I guess. They didn't even cross-examine her at all, the defense. But before the next witness was called, there had been a few moments in the morning where the DA, Seidelman, he had referred to Luigi's notebook as a manifesto, and he talked about the killing of Brian Thompson as an execution. And there were some objections. And before the next witness was called, Karen Agnifilo stood up and was like, look, I just really object to the terminology here of the notebook being called a manifesto and obviously the killing of Thompson being an execution, just so her client can get a fair trial. And Judge Caro actually said something along the lines of, look, this is a hearing, so none of this language affects me, but come trial, those words won't be allowed. So I found that interesting. Come time for the trial, the red notebook will not be called a manifesto in front of the jury, and they cannot refer to Brian Thompson's killing as, quote, execution style or anything like that. But we then spent a majority of the day with Officer Wasser, Christy Wasser, a 19-year vet, who was actually the officer who searched the bag. I was waiting for this. And, I thought we would hear a lot of new information, or I don't know what I thought. I just thought it wouldn't quite be as repetitive, I guess, but we did hear about some new evidence. And I think something odd to me was that Officer Wasser started off by saying that she was never actually dispatched to the scene herself. She described being in her patrol car that morning and listening to the call come across dispatch, the 911 call, and hearing Detweiler get called to the scene. So she heard the whole thing and she's like, oh, okay, CEO shooter possibility in Altoona, at the McDonald's. Yeah, okay. But she decided that she was going to call Detweiler anyway, just to check in, because she's like, this is crazy. So when she called him, he said, and this was between like 9:35 and 9:37 a.m., he said, I'm a little busy. And he hung up, and she said that was weird. So she decided to head over there to the McDonald's. And so, defense had a good time being like, so your supervisors were there, everybody was there, nobody called you there, but you went anyway? Okay, got it. They had a little fun with that. So she describes, searching the bag after the arrest of Luigi Mangione. They talk about the distance of the bag between Luigi and the table where it was placed. I believe it was between 4 and 6 feet. Defense confirmed Luigi never reached for the bag. He never asked for the bag. And we learned what she pulled out initially, and how she was able to pull out the magazine and her reaction. So a couple things I think that were kind of interesting. She talked about feeling for a bomb. Well, actually, let me back up for a second. So let's get to the wet underwear part. She described Officer Wasser pulling a gray wet underwear from the bag. And I swear, guys, the state made her say that it was wet like 4 times. And by the way, he never was like, did it smell like urine? It was nothing like that. He just, and she said, yes, they were damp. So she felt something hard and she unwrapped it, and it was a magazine, and the magazine had bullets in it as well. So after that, she's like, okay. And she decides to do a check for explosives, for a bomb. And she describes like not really feeling around the bag for it or anything. And this comes out during her cross, that she didn't feel for anything. But she was also asked during the cross, when she was about to check for explosives, Karen Agnifilo was like, so did you decide to clear the restaurant? Did you put your ear up to it? Did you feel for it? She later says, I'm kind of giving this away, but later at intake, Wasser finds a silencer on the side. And Agnifilo is like, well, if you would have felt for the silencer on the side, it could have been the shape of a pipe bomb. You didn't do that. And then later during the redirect, the state was kind of like, well, it's not really smart to put your ear up to a bag. Now, is it? And she's like, no. And she kind of went into why you shouldn't do that. So, each side does their thing, and it's very interesting. But as soon as they found that mag, they're like, okay, we should continue this back at the station. It's important to note, though, that Luigi did leave the McDonald's while they were still searching the bag. And the Pennsylvania search and seizure policy, there was different parts of it read out loud, basically indicating that she followed protocol, etc. But again, it's the crux of the argument here is that a lot of this evidence was turned over to the NYPD when, if this was a regular case, not a complex case like this, a lot of it would have just sat in a locker, and gone along with wherever the defendant or suspect goes, like to a jail, or if they're released, it goes with them. But no, this was all sent to New York because it was part of a New York investigation. I mean, it is going to be a really tough decision for the judge. I got to say, it's like, I'm listening to both sides and I'm like, oh yeah, good point. And then I'm like, oh yeah, good point. So yes, she goes to intake, and there was a tense moment a little bit during the cross, where I guess, she's in the car, she keeps her gloves on, Officer Wasser, but she turns her body cam footage off. She gets a call from Officer Fox, who has, she has the McDonald's bag of evidence, and Fox has the backpack, I believe. And in the McDonald's bag of evidence, it's, it's stuff that they found, in the bag that wasn't necessarily contraband. So clothing, USB drives, whatever. Oh, also, there was a new writing, a note with like a map of Pittsburgh this time, and some weird writings on it. Like, It said FBI is slow, just crazy. Oh, and I'm forgetting the headline here, the Italian bread. So random. When Officer Wasser searched the bag, one of the first things she pulled out was a full loaf of Italian bread. But let's also remember he had a jar of peanut butter on his person. So this guy's prepared. He seems prepared. And I was squinting at the bread so I could find the brand, and it was Da Italiano, the brand. So anyway, she gets to intake. She ends up searching the bag, researching it. Oh no, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm all over the place. I'm going back to her getting the backpack from Officer Fox. They stopped on the way. They were both on their way to the precinct, and I guess he got a call from dispatch to go somewhere else. So he calls her and says, "Hey, let's pull over so I can give this to you and you can bring it over." And again, Wasser's body cam was off and her patrol cam on the car was apparently off. And so Karen Agnifilo was kind of like, you did this on purpose so you could search the bag, find the gun and the silencer, and then like be this hero when you get to the station. And Wasser was like, that's inaccurate. That's totally inaccurate. So again, she goes to the station. She ends up finding a silencer on a side pocket. She finds the handgun. As soon as she does, they go into the hallway for safety purposes to finish the search. And evidence is bagged from there and itemized from there. So again, there was a lot of push and pull. There really seemed like I don't know if I want to call it a pissing contest between the defense and the state when the direct examination was done and the cross, because they would both get up for recross, redirect. And I put this up from my Twitter just really quick because there was some just crazy moments where it's the state. He said, and this was literally like, I'm telling you, Karen Agnifilo had barely sat back down. And he's like, and when was the first time you found the gun that killed Brian Thompson? And they're like, objection, Your Honor. And then let me see. Oh, and then this is the other one. So this is where, yeah, she could barely sit back down. So he says, he basically shouts out to Wasser when Agnifilo said, no further questions. He said, were you aware that this crime was premeditated? And she's like, objection, Your Honor. And even Mangione kind of like shook his head a little bit. So it's been a little sneaky, I guess. And you know what's funny? I guess I'm not used to the prosecution being that sneaky. Usually it's the defense. So I guess hats off to the state for this, because I just, I'm not used to seeing that. They're usually very reserved, very, by the book, but Seidelman is not. So I'll be back tomorrow for technically day 6, but really day 5. More of most likely officer body cam footage, and you can catch all things Luigi Mangione right here on Los Angeles Magazine.